And hello and welcome. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. You've been tuned into Arts and Entertainment. And today we're going to highlight the Actors Fund. And David Engelman, the Director of Communication and Marketing, is my guest today. And David, thanks so much for being here today. So nice to have you.
Thank you, Deborah. I appreciate you having us here to talk about the Actors Fund.
Well, you know what? You were here in December of 2020. We're now here in February of 2022. I thought it was really important for the viewer to be able to listen to hear what's happening to the Actors Fund since you've been here. But why don't we first start with you? Take us back into your background. Tell us about yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll give you the really brief version. So I originally from Michigan. I started off my career as an actor, worked for about 15 years in various regional theaters, and then made a transition out of acting and into events. I ended up volunteering at the Actors Fund, and I attended what was then called the Actors Fund Work Program. It's now our career center, and I had a wonderful counselor named Pat Schwadron, who is still a career counselor for the Actors Fund. And she assisted me in coming to some conclusions about my professional life. And I made what I consider a successful transition. I'm now very happy, and I've been at the Actors Fund for about 18 years, originally with events, and now I work in communications and marketing.
My thought is your background and your beginnings, and you were an actor. Did you think that you would be making the transition? What made you leave the acting profession?
No, I did. It's funny. I didn't go into it with the intention of making a transition, but I reached a point where it was a combination of things. It's for people in show business. It's about piecing together often there's a fluctuating income, let's say. So I would book a gig, maybe a couple of gigs as an equity actor, and then I wouldn't have anything for, say, a year. So I would be doing everything from, temping in an office to doing coat checks somewhere and trying to piece together my living. So that was difficult. However, the joy of performing always was more important to me than some of those challenges. I think, though, when I reached a point when I was losing some of the joy when I was on stage actually performing, I had to look inside, and I finally came to a realization that it was time to look at other options. Because I was sort of losing some of that joy. And now I'm far, far happier in the audience at a ballet or an opera or a musical or a play or a movie, you name it. And then I get to go home and show up at 9 a.m. for my regular job.
Now, people may and may not know about the Actors Fund. So why don't we take a moment and tell us what it's all about?
Absolutely. The Actors Fund is a national human services organization. They've been around since 1882, and their mission is to foster stability and resiliency and provide a safety net for performing arts and entertainment professionals over their lifespan. So they offer an incredible array of services around health and wellness, career and life, and housing, in all of these areas for people who work in the business. And now that's not just actors. The name is a bit of a misnomer. So it's anyone who works on stage, on camera, behind the scenes, or they'll also say below the line. So it's anyone from a production assistant on a film crew. It's a dancer in a small dance company. Anyone who's earning their living professionally as a performing arts and entertainment professional can come to the Actors Fund for services. We have offices in New York, LA, and Chicago, but we help people. For instance, in 2020, we helped people in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So it's really a service that's there for everyone in performing arts and entertainment.
I took the time yesterday to watch our interview from 2020, and you were telling me when things started in 1882, the history was very fascinating. Take us back to the beginning. Why was it created?
Sure, it is really fascinating. The perception of people working in performing arts and entertainment, perhaps at that time, was rather different. And for instance, when an actor on the road, if someone died and did not have the funds, their family didn't for a burial, actors were not buried in consecrated ground. So there's very much this different perception of people in arts and entertainment. So one of the very first services of the Actors Fund, when it started, was to offer that services. And to this day, the Actors Fund has funded for the funeral and burial of people in the arts more than 2,000 individuals. So there is an actual cemetery in Brooklyn where the Actors Fund has plots, and there's also one in upstate New York. So that continues to be a service for people.
Now, people will probably be looking at you and saying your background's a little bit different, and in 2020 the pandemic was roaring, and still in 2022 you're at home. Tell us how the pandemic has affected your industry.
The industry, I mean, it has been devastating for people who work in this industry. In March of 2020, like many industries, but in particular arts and entertainment, live performing venues shut down, Broadway and theaters across the country shut down, performing arts venues for dance, music, since the fund helps musicians as well, movie theaters, of course, all the studios who employ thousands and thousands of individuals who do anything from costume design to camera operating to location scouts, film and TV. All of this completely shut down. So people were without work. And as I had noted earlier, people in this business can often end up working paycheck to paycheck. There's this fluctuating income and you go from gig to gig. So as a musician, if you're suddenly without any options to earn a living, you might not have an emergency fund, and you might be left either facing eviction, you're unable to pay for essential medications, you're unable to cover health insurance premiums. And the Actors Fund in the past 2 years has provided $25 million in direct financial assistance to more than 17,600 people who work in performing arts and entertainment. And that has come from the Actors Fund's own funds, as well as those of nearly 20 partner organizations. These emergency grants, as I said, they'll help with people for essentials such as food, medicine, rent. And at the same time, the fund, as they always have, has helped those impacted by natural disasters such as hurricanes and the wildfires in California and elsewhere, tornadoes, floods. The fund is really there to provide that safety net to make sure people are safe, well, healthy, and cared for in those times of crisis.
And when I think of fund, I think of money. Tell us where you folks get your fundraising from, or where do the funds come from?
Absolutely. They come from various sources, like many nonprofits. So we have many generous individuals who make a donation directly to the Actors Fund. We do have corporations who do a membership in the Actors Fund for either for recognition or access to blocks of seats on Broadway and in LA, in New York and LA. So there's corporate support. There's also foundations who support. There's many industry partners. So for instance, SAG-AFTRA and the SAG-AFTRA Foundation have been very generous in terms of providing emergency financial assistance support, and then the Actors Fund takes those funds and has the infrastructure over the course of these past 2 years, has the infrastructure and distributed those funds for those organizations. The Netflix has been a big supporter. There's actually a very long list, and I would also like to add. We do have planned giving, so people can include the Actors Fund in their estate, which there's an incredible list of people in arts and entertainment who have done just that, including, I wanted to just share a couple of names like George M. Cohen or Katharine Hepburn or Elaine Stritch and many, many others. The thing that's probably most or certainly very important to mention is that Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS is the leading donor to the Actors Fund. They provide upwards of $10 million a year in support of many of our services, such as the Friedman Health Center in New York City, the Career Center, and of course the HIV/AIDS Initiative, the Phyllis Newman Women's Health Initiative. So Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, of course, is a very well-known organization, very respected out of New York City, who is, they do excellent fundraising. And again, they are a major donor to keeping our programs available to people in the business. They also provide many grants to individual organizations across the country and some internationally as well. So it's important to know how much they do for not just the Actors Fund, but for many other HIV/AIDS organizations and other organizations across the country.
Now, I wanted to also mention you're at home and your offices are closed and you're using Zoom. How has that been for your individuals, for the people who work for the fund? How has it been technology-wise to change from being in person to being in front of your computer?
That's a great question. I mean, there's no silver lining to this pandemic. It's a terrible thing, and people are struggling in so many different ways. But I will say that the Actors Fund has been very nimble in their use of technology, and in particular, online courses, groups, seminars for people in the arts and entertainment industry. So as I said, when the shutdown happened in March of 2020, the fund immediately did a couple of things. They changed their application for emergency financial assistance to something that was much more streamlined. We were able to do it online, and they were quickly able to make these grants. And as I said, in the past 2 years, it's been 25 million granted to people in need, more than 17,600. There's no typical year, but prior to 2020, for instance, in 2019, typically my colleagues in social services would provide around $2 million in emergency financial assistance. And in the past 2 years, it's been 25 million. So it's a significant change there, and in providing it so quickly and via an online application for that assistance. In addition, and secondly, I'd say that the fund really pivoted to offering their services around health and wellness, career and life, and housing, all online. So in 2020 alone, we're in the course of doing our 2021 numbers, but in 2020 alone, the fund helped 40,000 people via all of our services, and that's a 71% increase over 2019. Just as an example of how these services are helping people, I would say we have moved what used to be our in-person groups around support to being all online. So forgive me as I cheat, but we have In terms of groups, we offered in 2020 alone 53 mental health groups to over 500 participants, and that's really growing. And it's anything from affinity groups such as Thriving with the Actors Fund group for Black, Identified, and People of Color entertainment professionals, Mind, Body, Spirit group for Black women in entertainment, groups specific for Asian Pacific Islanders. There's also mindfulness meditation. There's groups for seniors. There's groups for dancers. So there's all types of groups that allow people in the business to come together, support each other, share resources, and really stay healthy and well over the course of the pandemic.
Okay, let's hold that thought. I'm Deborah Gilbert. You are tuned into Arts and Entertainment. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Let me take a moment to have a conversation with the brown and Black communities. Coming from your community, I completely understand why there's vaccine hesitancy in communities of color. Reality of it all is doing nothing will only guarantee that we will continue to see our friends and family die at a much higher rate. So we've got to do something. So why don't you join me, elbow to elbow, so that we can get back to being the strong community that we have been in the past. God bless you, and let's get this done.
Hey world, I have a quick message. It's about safe driving. All right, let's go. Anytime you're driving, have the seatbelt buckled tight, both hands on the wheel and your phone out of sight. When not in your hand trying to text somebody back, because if you do, your car might get smacked. The moral of the story, just put your phone down. The people on the road will stay safe and sound. Put your phone down, put your phone down. People on the road will stay safe and sound. Yeah.
And welcome back to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. I hope you're enjoying the show. Well, we continue on with David Engelman, the Director of Communications and Marketing for the Actors Fund. And David, let's not forget the website. What will people find when they visit?
On the website, thank you so much for mentioning that. It's a window into all of the services for the Actors Fund. So when you come to the site, of course, there's a whole array of options to donate and support the organization. You can either attend our virtual gala, which is the announcement coming soon. You can also attend a whole array of online events, which are a lot of fun. Of course, you can look at joining the Edwin Forrest Society, which is our planned giving society, or make individual donations in support of all of our services. In terms of the services themselves, we do encourage people to opt in to our monthly email that summarizes everything we can offer to you as a performing arts and entertainment professional. We also have an online calendar, and we have links so that people can sign up for any of our free support groups, our free classes, our free seminars around topics like finding affordable housing, which is a big issue for people in some of these bigger cities where arts and entertainment professionals go for work. Things like financial wellness classes, classes around career, so how to use LinkedIn, how to update your resume, how to search for work in a pandemic to find good sideline work. And also classes around Medicare, understanding Medicare, accessing affordable health insurance, because people in the business can often roll off of their union plans or have no health insurance, which can be which is not a good idea. And our counselors at the Actors Fund in these classes can help people to enroll. They are completely unbiased, so they'll take all of your information and help you to find a plan that can work for you and your family.
What I don't want to forget, which I find very interesting, is the home in Englewood, New Jersey. Why don't you tell us about that?
Absolutely. Our home in Englewood, New Jersey is an incredible spot. I'm cheating to find a couple of points where I can brag about the home. It's also one of the earliest services of the fund. So I believe it started on Staten Island back in the 20s. It eventually moved to Englewood, New Jersey, which is its current location. The Actors Fund Home is for everyone in performing arts and entertainment who has devoted a major portion of their careers to just that, to working in arts and entertainment. So when you go to the home, and when it's safe to visit, but if you were to visit, you'd find anyone from someone from the original cast of Fiddler on the Roof. I've actually talked to people who a gentleman who worked with Marilyn Monroe and helped her to color her hair. There's dancers, there's musicians, there's jazz musicians, there's all kinds of incredible professionals out there. The one thing is I definitely wanted to brag about the Actors Fund Home. It's not only skilled nursing, but it's an assisted living facility. And they also offer memory care, and they offer subacute or short-term recovery at the home. So if you're going for a surgery and you need some rehabilitation, you can do short-term rehabilitation at the home before you go back to your own home. U.S. News and World Report noted that the home is one of among only 1,650 facilities nationwide to be recognized with a badge of honor as among the best nursing homes in the country for these short stay rehabilitation services.
So individuals that are in the arts that would like to be at the home, do they apply? How do they become a resident of the facility?
That's a great question. You can go either to actorsfund.org, and you will find information about the home and who to contact. And via actorsfund.org, you will also be directed to actorsfundhome.org, which has even more specific information about any inquiries if you wanted to do a tour, if you wanted to learn more about the facility.
You're at home, it's 2022, things are whatever they are, if you will. How does the rest of 2022, 23, 24 look for your industry, for the Actors Fund? Are you going to get back in the office?
Again, a great question. I think the answer really is that's the intention. Yeah. Our services really, the pandemic has forced the fund, and I think that I should say my colleagues, the people who provide the services, as well as everyone in fundraising and marketing, have continued to meet the challenge of not being on site, not being in the office, and continuing our services virtually. That said, my colleagues who work at the Actors Fund Home, they've been on site for our residents from the beginning, as well as two of our affordable housing facilities in New York and one of them in LA. Those social services team members have been there for our residents over the whole course of the pandemic, and they are among these important frontline workers for people who need these services. But as I said, the intention is to bring all of my colleagues back into our offices in New York, Chicago, LA, and be available to people in entertainment and performing arts. Because the services online, while they're terrific and people can learn and they can do it from anywhere, almost at any time, that's very much how we're moving in that direction. There's something to be said for being able to come into an office, a physical office, and speak with a social worker, see a doctor if you're in New York at our Friedman Health Center, and work with someone from the Career Center around counseling and get that one-on-one attention. Which again happens virtually, but for those who are in those cities and choose to, the fund will always be there, and that's the intention to move that way. We're keeping an eye, just like so many other businesses and organizations, on when it's going to be most safe, both for our colleagues and most importantly also for the people who work in arts and entertainment.
For the individual, and I always like to give advice to the viewer, for those individuals that are thinking about pursuing the performing arts, would they find the Actors Fund a positive next step to reach out to get some advice as to what to do and how to take care of themselves as they move through their thoughts of being in the industry?
That's another great question. The Actors Fund services really are built around people who are actively pursuing their career, their livelihood from performing arts and entertainment. But that said, we do have a service that's called the Arts Worker Resource Center. And you will find that again on actorsfund.org. So it is a listing of services. There's also a contact number there for people who are either learning about your rights as an arts worker. It's connecting to your local arts councils for access about information on fiscal sponsorships, arts funding resources. And so in other words, there's resources for people who are looking to start their careers, but the ongoing services of the fund are really for people who have been in the business and are continuing to pursue those careers.
Well, we are starting to run out of time. Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to leave for the viewer about the fund or about the future?
I think something probably that's important to mention is our chairman, Brian Stokes Mitchell, who is an incredible advocate for people who work in performing arts and entertainment and for the fund's services. He has and continues to be quote unquote on the front lines of really getting the word out about everything the fund does and can provide to people in the business. And also he's an incredible advocate in terms of getting people excited about supporting the organization and how important their donations can be. There's an incredible board of trustees with vice chairs like Annette Benning, who's of course in LA and works hand in hand with Brian Stokes Mitchell. And I of course would want to mention our President and CEO Joe Benincasa, who really leads our board of trustees but I would encourage everyone to just visit actorsfund.org, because there's either whether you love the arts or whether you want to support it or whether you work in the arts or both, there's incredible resources there, and it's a great organization. 140 years this year on June 8th.
Well, thank you very much, David, for being my guest today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Deborah.
And you've been tuned in to Arts and Entertainment. I'm Deborah Gilbert, your host. Hope you enjoyed the show. I'll see you next time.